All right, today we are digging into a case file from 2010 out of the city of Daman. Now, on the surface, this story has all the makings of a really chilling ghost story, but we're going to look at it from a different angle. We're going to treat it as a pretty disturbing case study in obsession and in human psychology. So, let's get into it. You know, it's a question almost all of us can relate to, right? Rejection, it's a powerful and, yeah, really painful feeling. For most people, it leads to some sadness, maybe a little embarrassment, and then, you move on. But what happens when that feeling doesn't just fade away? What happens when it starts to curdle into something else? And right there, that's where this case takes a very sharp, very dark turn. Instead of accepting the situation, the path that was chosen was one of, well, alleged supernatural control. This wasn't just about a broken heart anymore. This was about a total refusal to take no for an answer. And it led to an attempt to seize control using some pretty extreme and frankly terrifying means. So let's set the scene. The year is 2010. We're in Daman, a coastal city in India. A group of friends. They've just finished their big 10th grade exams. And they're doing what kids do, spending their nights at a local cyber cafe, killing time. But on one of these nights, one of them just wouldn't make it home, and an obsession that had been just simmering under the surface was about to boil over. Okay, so here are the key players in our file. First, we have Pankaj. He's our victim. He's a bright kid. He's just about to start this whole new life in the UK. Then there's the perpetrator, his neighbor. And her all-consuming obsession is really what we're focused on here. We also have Suraj, Pankaj's close friend, and his first-hand account is absolutely crucial. And what's the one thing that connects them all? It's a classic case of unrequited love that's about to spiral into something much, much darker. So the big question is, how does a simple crush get to this point? I mean, to really get a grip on the method that was used, we first have to understand the motive. This wasn't something that happened overnight. It was the end result of a long psychological progression that was just fueled by rejection after rejection and a total inability to cope with it. It allowed this internal obsession to just take complete control. And you can see how it charts this really clear psychological path. It all starts with a pretty intense infatuation. But when Pankaj repeatedly turns her down, that feeling doesn't go away. It changes. The pain of being rejected hardens into anger, and then that anger becomes a solid plan to control him. And finally, she goes looking for a method, in this case, black magic, that promises her total and complete power over her target. And this quote, which comes from a local cleric who got involved later on, it really says everything. The key phrase here is, at any cost. That reveals a mindset where Pankaj isn't a person with his own feelings anymore. He's an object, a prize to be won. It shows someone who is completely possessed by their own desires with absolutely no thought for consent or consequences. So, with the motive pretty clear, let's shift to the night it all went down and take a look at the method. The scene of the crime, you could call it, is Danlin's old lighthouse. It's a pretty deserted spot, and it's about to become the stage for this whole terrifying drama. This timeline really shows you just how fast everything happened. At 9 p.m., it's a totally normal night. Pankaj is heading home. But by 10, full-blown panic is setting in. His phone's off, and he's just gone. For about an hour, his friends are frantically searching the usual roads until they decide to check a longer route, and that's where they make a really chilling discovery. And this is the completely bizarre scene they stumble upon. Pankaj isn't hurt. He hasn't been in some kind of accident. He's just sitting there, stiff, motionless, under the lighthouse. He's totally out of it, like he's in a trance, and he's holding this single candle. I mean, the whole thing is just so unsettling. It feels more like a ritual than a rescue. When his friends finally get him to look up, this is what they see. His eyes, according to his friend Suraj's eyewitness account, the whites of his eyes had turned completely black. This single, terrifying detail is the thing that turns their worry into just pure, raw fear. And as they're struggling to get him to move, something else happens that's just inexplicable. A substance, they described it as smoke, comes out of his nose. And only then does his body finally relax from that rigid state. He's still not talking, but that immediate, intense part of the trance, it seems to be broken. So let's talk about the aftermath, because the incident at the lighthouse wasn't the end of it, not at all. It was just the beginning of this period of torment. And the obsession's influence, it was spreading. It wasn't just affecting Pankaj anymore. It was starting to target his best friend, Suraj. So the next day, back at the house, Pankaj, still not himself, leans over to Suraj and whispers this terrifying threat. And this right here is a massive turning point. Whatever this entity is, or this psychological manifestation of the curse, it now sees Suraj as an obstacle that needs to be removed. And this really shows the immense psychological pressure that Suraj was under. On the outside, he's keeping up this macho image, right? He's laughing it off, pretending it's all a joke. But on the inside, he is completely terrified. Those words are haunting him, and it's driving him to secretly figure out what in the world is going on. So his private investigation takes him right back to the source, to the lighthouse. And what happens next is just horrifying. He feels this unseen, intensely cold presence right behind him. And then, as he's trying to get away, he looks in his scooter's mirror and sees this awful figure, a woman with a burned face, which causes him to crash. It seems like the psychological attack has now widened its scope. And now we get to the final act of this case. This is where the very human motivation behind all these supernatural events is finally and explicitly confirmed. This is the confession. But it's not from some spirit, it's from the actions of a person. This is such a key piece of evidence. As Pankaj's family is getting ready to move him away to safety, his friends look over and see the neighbor, the girl with the crush, standing outside her home. And she's not sad, she's not concerned, she's glaring. It's the look of someone who is losing control of something they see as their possession. So what exactly was the weapon used in this psychological crime? Black magic. But in this context, it's not really about ghosts or spirits. It's a tool, it's a method somebody sought out for one very specific purpose: to completely dominate and control another person, and to strip them of their own free will. And here it is, the final confirmation. After Pankaj is finally taken to safety, his friends confront the local cleric, and he just lays out the facts. The girl, totally consumed by her obsession after being rejected, went and found a tantric, a practitioner of these mystical arts, to cast a powerful spell to bind Pankaj to her. 15. That's how many years have passed since this whole thing happened. And in all that time, Pankaj, who was supposed to be heading off to the UK for his studies, he left the country. And he has never once come back. The psychological trauma was so deep, it permanently cut his connection to his own home. So this is what it all boils down to. Pankaj was put through this absolutely terrifying ordeal, right? Allegedly controlled by some outside force. But the girl, she was controlled by something internal, an obsession so powerful that she was willing to completely destroy someone's life just to get what she wanted. And that leaves us with the ultimate question of this whole case file. Who was the one who was truly possessed?